Welcome to the True You podcast. Happy to be back on air with my dear colleague, Bill Tierney. And my name is Martin Kettlehead. And today's topic is getting clarity on what you want. I think one place to start, if you're open to it, on this question is to investigate a little this question. Like, how could it be that we wouldn't have clarity on what we want? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why would it become cloudy about how does that happen? Why is
That's a great place to start, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I want to mention that what's inspiring this is that I'm having some clients renewing right now. And what that means is that our initial contract, our initial agreement for the work that we would do together has come to an end in terms of how much time we've spent on it. Our original agreement was we'd spend X number of sessions focused on this specific, clear objective. And now it's time to complete with that objective and then state a new one. Because that's what coaching is all about, I would say. I mean, there's a lot more to coaching than that, but without an agreement and clarity about what does the client want when they come to coaching in the first place, it's kind of a hodgepodge, and every week is a different topic, and it's hard to make a whole lot of progress. In fact, it's almost impossible to make much progress towards any kind of specific named goal. I live in Spokane, Washington, 280 miles from Seattle. And if we left my home, actually I live in Liberty Lake, so it's about 300 miles. But if we left my home and just hit the road and then stopped for gas and then went on to a different direction, if we didn't have a destination, if it's not Seattle and around here, maybe it's Tri-Cities or Walla Walla or Wenatchee or some of these other places. Without a destination, we would just be shotgunning it all over the place and never really arrive at any place that we had intended to. So it's important to know where we're going to go. And to do that, we need to establish a very clear objective about what the client wants coaching to help them to accomplish. To do that, the client needs to know what they want. So 99 times out of 100, when I ask the client, what do you want coaching to help you accomplish? I hear a whole lot of what they don't want anymore.
Okay.
So clients come to coaching. They come to coaching because they're having an experience that they aren't happy with, or they're not having the experience that they want. But most of the time, what they come to coaching with regarding clarity is what they don't want. And so when I first start meeting with clients, my question is, what do you want coaching to help you with? Yeah. If coaching worked for you, how would you know? So let's just kind of play with that a little bit today, maybe.
The way I put it lately, this changes, but the way I put it lately is like, if this were to be successful for you, what would you be doing in 6 months?
Yeah, that's a great way to ask it. And how does that go? Do people struggle with being able to imagine and visualize what they would do?
Yeah, I don't know if this has to do with personality types or upbringing or, education or what, but some people have a hard time. And that's why I think this is a great topic. Some people, they have clarity about what they want right away. And other people, it's like, gosh, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's some people see a correlation with the people who are successful, by the way, because the clearer you are on your vision of where you want to go, like that you could taste it almost, the more likely you are to get there. If it's I don't know, I just want to improve this situation. So that's gonna be hard to work with.
And some lines of metaphysical thinking would say that if the focus is on what you don't want, you're actually just attracting more of this of the same.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't want to be broke all the time. And the way it was explained to me is broke all the time. That's what the universe here is: broke all the time, broke all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and more importantly, that's what you're hearing. If you're saying that to yourself, that's what you're hearing.
Oh, well, I'm a narcissist, so I am the universe. So That's not true. That's my attempt to be funny.
So what is it that makes it difficult? Why is this challenging to be clear about what we want?
I believe it's because many of us are so focused on the suffering we're trying to manage. So
Mhm.
we're really oriented to what we don't want. And it seems like a luxury and an indulgence to consider what we might want.
Yeah, no, that seems so obvious and profoundly obvious. And yet, I don't think we realize. I just want to underline the premise here is that we're mostly thinking about negative things, things we don't want.
Right.
Like that's important to grasp at the outset.
I think so too. And so as coaches, we come up against that. That's what many of our clients bring into coaching. Initially, when we first engage the client in the coaching agreement, and also ongoing, no matter what's happened initially, that's going to come up over and over and over again. I don't want this. I don't want that. Help me
Mhm.
not to have this anymore.
Yeah.
And
I
and
can't tell you how many times a day I have to flip it around and say, okay, well, if you weren't getting that, then what would you get? You know?
right, right,
Oh
exactly. And
gosh, I never thought of it that way. That's
oh,
the typical answer.
and I that was me, and that still could be me at any point in time if I go unconscious for a while and find myself just grinding through whatever the next challenge is, and then one day wake up and notice, oh gosh, I don't feel content or happy or joyous anymore. What happened to that? I used to be the happiest guy I knew, and and that happens.
I also think that there are some in between stages between just thinking about what you don't want and thinking about what you do want. We don't realize we're on the slippery slope to thinking what we don't want. Like managing other people's approval of what we want.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right now, that's not necessarily thinking about what you don't want, but it's managing a situation that you don't want. And you think that by managing it, that you're going to get what you want, but you're still just managing around what you don't want.
That's what burdened protectors, if we think in terms of the internal family systems model, that's what burden protectors do is the managers, there's two kinds of protectors, managers and firefighters. The managers are really devoted. Their motto is never again, to never allowing that bad, painful, hurtful, scary thing to happen again, ever.
Mhm, mhm,
So that's their entire focus. And so if I have a manager led system, a system that's led by burdened managers, meaning that they're still tethered to an unresolved past,
mhm,
then they're going to be reacting to my present life with a lens that's fine tuned to, is there any danger that what happened in the past is about to happen again?
mhm.
Whatever we need to do to prevent that from happening, that's what I'm going to do. So if the predominance of the influence in my internal family comes from managers that are burdened,
Mhm.
then that's going to be my orientation. I'm not going to be thinking about what I want. I don't have room for that. I'm too busy trying to avoid what I don't want.
I was speaking to a client last week who has a protector. I think that's the correct word. He was protecting him. This protector is about 7 years old, protecting him from having a bad influence on people. Something it's it was in relationship to a family member that he asserted himself and offered a solution as a 7 year old, and it turned out to go poorly for the other person. And so
Mhm.
now he has a protector that will keep him from having too much influence on other people.
That's a great example. And depending on how dominant that protector is and how often it shows up and influences him, it may rob him of the ability to even begin to consider what could be possible for him.
So that's how I discovered this protector is because we're working on what he wants, right? This invention that he wants the world to get to know, right? And sell and change people's lives with. but his protector won't quite let him. And we just kept bumping up against this protector. I was like, wait a minute, there's a part of you that's resisting this. Let's talk with it.
How'd that go?
Very well.
Yeah. It's a
Very
thing when you actually go to the source of the concern. And that's what it is, too, by the way. Any burden part is reacting from a concern, a worry, or a fear.
Mhm.
Um, let me restate that. Every burden protector is reacting from a worry, a fear, or a concern. There's other burden parts, the exiles that are actually holding the original unresolved pain and meaning making from any circumstance that stayed inside as a wound and that didn't get healed and resolved. Those
Mhm.
exiles don't really have a job, and they're not really especially fearful or concerned or worried. They're just holding the energy of the unresolved event, whatever that was.
This in this client, um, the session ended with that part, that 7-year-old part, now being updated. I don't need to go into all the details, but and now has a new job, which is to integrate my client's needs and wants with others' needs and wants. That's his new job.
Nice. Nice. And sometimes that can work by just having a conversation with that one part.
Mm-hmm.
Other times it requires getting the rest of the team involved. And that's usually the case is there's a team of parts that are all kind of domino ripple affecting each other.
Yeah, some other parts definitely appeared in that
I'm
conversation.
sure. I'm sure they did. Yeah. So back to your question, why are we so oriented to what we don't want? That's my understanding. I believe that explains it maybe 100% of the time.
And do you subscribe to the view that the reason why that's our orientation is because it goes back before we had the luxury of being able to create our reality to when we were living in the fear that we were going to be stomped on or eaten?
Oh, I see. It's going. You're suggesting that this goes back, what IFS would call a legacy burden that goes back all the way back to our earlier evolution. Maybe it
I'm
gets
not even.
hardwired into the DNA.
Yeah, this is, and we come from the animal kingdom. And I'm not suggesting this, but I've heard this said quite often, and I just wondered what you think.
Right.
That because of that, first we learned fight or flight, just to stay alive, and now we've got this luxury of having survived and be able to create a reality, and not our parts haven't caught up, our deepest parts, like our
Yeah.
amygdala.
Right. Right. That goes beyond my understanding, but I'm absolutely open to how instinct,
Mhm.
survival instinct, get kind of cooked in, and that's not a part with the job. That is, I'm not sure how
Well,
it's cooked in, but
general context of life.
it's like if some people have fear of heights, some people have fear of spiders. There's all these phobias, and then there's just what everybody has. When like we're gonna all react when a bear stands up on his hind legs and growls and shows his teeth and claws. We're
Mhm.
gonna be scared. We're gonna want to run. Not too many of us are gonna want to go run toward the bear. We're gonna want to run away from it.
Exactly.
And that's instinct, survival instinct.
So if I was just sitting down with my journal, and I've got a life and it's pretty good, but I want to think about what I want. How do I begin to create that if I've got all these other tugs away, that are making me unclear about what I want?
I want to suggest that you do it in the easiest possible way and that you don't have to do a whole lot of work and try real hard.
Okay.
Because I don't know about you, but I don't like trying very hard. I don't, and most people I know don't really have a great love for that either. Plus,
Mhm.
we have a limited capacity to how much effort trying we can put into any given day. And so, what's easy is to focus for most of us is to focus on what we don't want. So here, let me just give you an example from my life. About 3 years before I met my current wife, Kathy, I made a list inspired by the teachings of Abraham, Esther and Jerry Hicks. And one of their books, Ask and It Is Given. I'm looking at it right now. One of my favorite books of all time. And in the back of that book are several different exercises. And I grabbed the exercise, and I don't do it exactly the way that Esther and described to do, but essentially it is go ahead and list everything that you don't want in any particular area. Like if it was money, it might be, I don't ever want to be broke again. I don't want to have to be worrying about the next paycheck. I don't want to have a bank account overdrawn, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, what it was I was scared to death that I was going to attract another really toxic, dysfunctional relationship. And I was convinced that there was something about me that acted as a magnet for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so after my second marriage, I made a deep vow that I wouldn't let myself get involved in a relationship again unless I was convinced that I had transformed from the inside out to become the kind of man that would attract a healthy relationship rather than a toxic one.
Mm-hmm.
So about 3 years before I met Kathy, I'd done a ton of work by then. I'd been doing this work for probably 9 years by then. This work meaning healing my past, challenging my thinking, redoing my belief system. And so I made this list of everything that I didn't want in a relationship. And it was so easy to do. I never want to experience these things with a woman. I never want to experience these things in a relationship again.
Right.
And in less than 20 minutes, I listed 65 or so different things that I didn't want. It was so easy. The hardest thing about it was to breathe because my pen was just flying on the page.
Wow.
And the way the instructions read, as I recall, was to list these like in 1 or 2 words at a time, but not sentences, just 1 or 2 words.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want to be resented. I don't ever want to be criticized. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be taken for granted. I don't want to be disrespected. All the things that I'd experienced in my second marriage and many other relationships as well. I don't want to be ignored. Just all kinds of are things that just are painful to experience in a relationship. Once I finally ran out of ideas of things that I didn't want, now it was time to go back to the very top of the list. And on the other side of the page with the label want, the left side was labeled don't want, the right side was labeled want. I looked at the very first word on the list and asked myself, if I don't want to be disrespected, I believe that's the first thing I listed, then do I want to be respected? Well, yes, of course. So I want respect. I want to feel respected in a relationship. What's the next thing? I don't want to be criticized. Okay. Well, what's the opposite of criticized? Do I want to be praised? No, that's not quite it. I'm not looking to be praised. I just don't want to be criticized. So what do I want? It's back to respect again. So respect again. I want to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
On and on and on. Now that took a little longer because there was a little bit of work in thinking about. I mean, I used the thesaurus and I used the dictionary and I Googled and I looked at, well, what would be the opposite of this word? And do I want that?
And sometimes it might not be the opposite, but just very different.
Exactly. Opposite helped though. It would kind of get me in the ballpark. And sometimes I would take that opposite and realize, well, that doesn't quite hit the mark, but it's close. So what are the synonyms for this word?
Mm-hmm.
And then within those synonyms, I would find a word that described what it was that I want. So in the end, I ended up with something like 60, 65 different clear descriptions of what I wanted in a woman and what I wanted in a relationship. Folded it up, put it in an envelope, put it in a box, put it in my closet, and forgot about it. Never looked at it again until about 3 months after I met Kathy, and we knew that we were an item by this time. I mean, I was serious about her. She was serious about me, and I found the box, opened it up. What's this? Oh, this envelope. This is what I want on the outside. I opened it up. I looked at the list. Oh, here it is. And I went through. Let's say there were 65 things. There were only 3 things on that list that I couldn't put a check mark honestly next to say, that's what I've got in this relationship.
Marvelous. Marvelous.
It was amazing. And it wasn't really magic, but it felt magical.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so clear about what I wanted, that clear intention, that clarity combined with intention and willingness to do whatever was necessary to become the man that I needed to be to attract that, all of that combined apparently to be manifested.
I think that's a moment. I just want to dilate, so to speak, on that's another thing that I think is really important in this conversation about why would it be that we don't have clarity. um, believability, that we can, the willingness. You use a couple of words there, like you got to believe or be willing to have what you want. Like if there's you're just like crusted over with, I can't have what I want, then that's going to be difficult. Or what good does it do for me to think up what I want when the world's just going to bulldoze me into whatever? Like
Mhm.
if that's seriously in your bones, then
Well, then that's got to be challenged.
that's got to be
That's
challenged.
that's the thing that's in the way, and that's what's got to be challenged.
Yeah.
And I use the word challenge because that's the way I view the work of Byron Katie, which is what I had been using for those 10 years or so by the time I made that list.
Uh-huh.
I think it was 9 years at that point. I'd been using the work of Byron Katie in this way. When I was suffering, I became convinced that my suffering was associated with thinking that didn't match reality.
Mhm.
That's what Byron Katie teaches. And so I used my suffering to identify the thinking that was causing that suffering, used her method to challenge that thinking, and in that way began to change my beliefs. And one of the beliefs was I don't deserve to be happy.
What do you do with um, people who on this issue they would say Esther Hicks or whoever? Like, how do you get there? There's I. How do you get from thinking it up to having what you want? Like that. I think to a lot of people, that's that's the internal thing that would need work, and they don't think that there's anything to work on there. Like that's the way it is. You don't. It's not like in The Secret where you just say what you want and it appears. Like, come on,
Correct. That's not been my experience. And I wanted it to be my experience because that sounds a lot easier.
doesn't it?
I had a buddy, still, he's a good friend, Chris, and he was a real estate agent, and I was a mortgage broker. And we would get together for lunch at least once a week or so, and we talk about the law of attraction. And that's Esther and Jerry Hicks and the teachings of Abraham. They're right at the core of that. And of course, the movie The Secret and Rhonda Burns, I think was her name, and all that. And Chris and I, we wanted so badly to believe that we could just think up a feather and it would show up at the door.
Mhm.
We start with the feather and then we'd build up to $1 million. Our complaint, after several months of getting together and studying the law of attraction and trying to get it nailed down so that we could get the magic just right and get our lives to manifest what we wanted. When it wasn't working, the common complaint that we had between ourselves was, where's my shit? I've been doing all the stuff. I've been doing what they say to do. Well, now all these years later, I can look back at the very same stuff that I thought they were telling us to do, and I was missing the part where it said, take action. Believe that the action that you take will bring about positive results, and it will. But there's action in it that's got to be taken. It's not magic. It's not a trick. We can't fool the universe into manifesting the life that we want. We need to recognize what it is inside that we are putting in the way of getting what we want. And also recognize that often what we want or think we want is just what one of our parts wants, thinking that if we had that, then everything would be okay. And that can send us down the wrong dirt road for a while too. If I only had the most beautiful woman in the world on my arm, if I only had $1 million, if I could drive a Mercedes, a brand new Mercedes, if I could win the lottery, then I'd be happy. Well, so depending on how much we put into going down that road, pursue that woman or to win the lottery or whatever that might be, if it works out and we get that woman, we get that Mercedes, we win that lottery, and we're still not happy. Now what? Ooh, now
Right. Right. That I know that played a big role at the beginning of my career with me. Like I know that I had thoughts about like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine running a business, but yet I was embarking on the process of building a business, and I had part of it was a sense of wonder, and that was okay. Like, I wonder how this could happen. But part of it was I just couldn't see it yet, but I kept going and it came about.
You kept going. It came about probably because you had more and more and more clarity about what you did and did not want. Oh, I don't want to work with that kind of client anymore. That was painful.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. You're exactly right. Like, yes, but, you know, like,
Yeah.
thank you. I took that step and I got some of what I want, but I see more clearly, is your point, that I need to do it in this way or with
Right.
these people or at this
Right.
time of day. What,
Book Yourself Solid is the name of a book that my first coach recommended that I get and follow in order to fill up my coaching practice and be a successful coach. I couldn't get past page 19 or 20 of a like 150-page manual because Michael was the author. I want to honor him by finding his name before we get done here, but because it's a great book. It really is great. But I just couldn't do it. I couldn't answer his questions. His questions were things like, who do you want to serve? Who's your target client? Who's your perfect client? And where do you find that client? And how old are they? And where do they live? And who do they talk to? And what do they do? And what do they want? And all these questions. I didn't have any of that clarity until I'd been coaching people for about 5 or 6 years.
I see. Yeah. So get in the water, wade into whatever it is you're dealing with, and start to be in action, be in the stuff of it. That will help you get clarity. That's a really important piece of coaching.
Yeah. There may be another way to get there, but Michael Port. But I wasn't able to do it. I actually had to have the experience. Port. Yeah. Michael Port, Yourself Solid. And it looks like there's some new editions of it that have been written since Michael Port, since I attempted to use the process. And interestingly, you've heard me talk about my marketing consultant, Meredith, who has helped me so much in my business. Guess what she wanted me to know? The very first question she asked me, who do you want? Who do you work with? What do they need? How do you help them? Where do you find them? What do they eat? Where do they hang out? Who do they talk to? And it surprised me that when she asked those questions, I started pushing back and I realized, oh, I have some of these answers now. I didn't know that I did. Yeah. And since then I've gotten really clear. Of course, learning about how to use the internal family systems model really has helped with that as well. Because my ideal client is someone who, number one, is willing to be helped to get clear about what they want. And number two, is willing to go inside and recognize that whatever it is that's stopping them from having that's where they're going to find it, not out there. And that's kind of challenging. It's kind of challenging to find a client who doesn't want me to help them fix what's broken out there. It's a little harder to take that focus inside.
Right. Well, and I've had clients too who they think they want it, whatever it is, a new boat, and then once they're up against what it will take, they decide, I don't want that after all. And sometimes I think it's right. So, you didn't realize all that this entails and that it doesn't align with you. Where did that idea come from? Why did you, but in the other cases, it's about the challenge. Like, I think you want this challenge. Not only because it's going to give you that result, but because you're going to discover stuff about yourself that it'd be better to leave behind.
There's so much there. I want this boat. Oh, now that I realize I'm going to have to pay taxes and get insurance and find mortgage and
scrub barnacles off the bottom every spring.
I guess I don't want it. And so there's the opportunity to recognize that again is an example of there's something inside that's not willing to do what it takes to have that. Another direction to go is you want that boat so that what is it what need gets met if you have that boat?
Right.
And if we can look at matters of the heart, like needs, I have a need for, here's an example that I heard from Marshall Rosenberg this morning as I'm listening to his book, Speak Peace. Um, a woman's yelling at her son, and she's just so mad at herself for it. And Marshall asks her, how did you educate yourself after you yelled at your son? What do you mean? What did you tell yourself? I told myself I'm a horrible mother. That's a shaming way. It's a violent way to treat yourself. And how effective is that? Well, it makes it even harder to be a good mother.
Yeah.
Because then now I have so much shame. All right.
So
So
to do anything,
right. What if instead you asked yourself, what was the need that wasn't met that had me yelling at my son? Or what's the need that wasn't met when you yelled at your son? That's the way it went. He helped her to see that the need that she had was she needed to respect other people. And when she yelled at her son, that need wasn't being met and she felt bad.
Mhm.
And then he asked her, and now how do you feel? When you tell yourself that you're a bad mom, how's that feel? It feels horrible. I'm ashamed of myself. How's it feel when you recognize that the need to respect other people wasn't met by yelling at your son? Well, now I just feel sad. And he pointed out, isn't that a sweet sadness? Because that informs you. That's true. That's a true sadness.
Mhm.
That's like regret, and it's there to teach you. Now, here's a way to teach yourself.
Where I say you're saying so many valuable things today, whereas most of the time, if there's sadness there, we go away from that. Rather than, no, that's a sweet sadness. It's telling you something very important. Savor
Right.
it. Mhm.
Hey, want to reclaim your true self or deepen your IFS skills? I lead 5 IFS focused groups for healing and growth. Find your fit at BillTierneyCoaching.com/coaching-groups. BillTierneyCoaching.com/coaching-groups. Now back to the show. So Marshall in Nonviolent Communication, Rosenberg, he talks about moving away from evaluation, recognizing that when we're judging and evaluating, we're not really aligning with reality at all. We are living in the world of the violent world of should, would have, could have, should have, and shaming. Whereas if we can just report what we were observing, and that begins with just doing it in ourselves. I'm noticing that, for example, I'm not feeling good about this, let's say, a relationship that I'm in right now. And I'm noticing that I'm wanting to go in the direction of judging or evaluating the other person and blaming them for why I'm unhappy. And of course, there's no place to go there. We're not going to get anywhere there except the end of that relationship, the beginning of another where we're going to repeat the same thing again.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can go inside and say, okay, what is it? What's going on here that has me being unhappy? What thinking do I have? What expectations do I have? What beliefs am I holding? What am I withholding? What is so here? Let's look at just the actual circumstances.
So what I want to just macro level, one of the things that you're making very clear in this explanation in your examples is that to get clarity about what you want, you got to kind of have a relationship with yourself. You got to and question that guy, interrogate that woman, get to know her, get to know what she doesn't want as well as what she wants.
That woman being the woman that is in a relationship with herself to understand herself.
Treat yourself objectively, like as much as you can. Like, well, what was the need that part of me wanted to get fulfilled? Why would I do that? Like, to have this kind of ability to look at yourself, not just to be your reactions to life, but to be able to look at myself and say, wow, what is going on? Why am I having this reaction? And I think that's a very important part of, just like a prerequisite to what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. Self-awareness. And that is I believe the first step in personal development, in transformation and in growth, is being aware of self. What's actually going on in here with me? We all, I'll just speak for myself. I was trained to focus on the external world.
Hmm.
What is it about what is it about what's going on out there that has me feeling this way in here?
Hmm.
If I can just get what's going on out there to change, so that I can feel better, then that's what life's all about. That's the pursuit of happiness right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't work. It absolutely doesn't work. Number one, because we don't have any power over most of what's going on out there. And we have plenty of power over what's going on in here if we'll bring our attention to it and approach it with compassion.
Hmm.
Approach treat ourselves with compassion and empathy, and begin there. So we put less emphasis and dependency on what's happening out there. So if on my list, the words that I listed for what I wanted in a relationship pointed to what she needed to do and who she needed to be, then I'm screwed. As Byron Katie would say, that's hopeless. But if the focus is on, I am in this relationship, I am content, I'm happy, I'm assertive, I'm proactive, I'm clear about what I want, I communicate honestly and clearly. If those things on the list, now I can get some traction. And my guess was that if I could become that person, and that's why I say it this way, I did the work that I needed to do to become the person that I needed to be to attract the woman that I wanted to be with and have the relationship that I wanted to have. And by the way, that's an ongoing thing. We've been together, it'll be 12 years married next month. And it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, just to add to this particular part of our conversation, I think that it's worth saying it's in those moments when we're most triggered that we have the hardest time being objective with ourselves, well, ourselves. And so it would be, if you can see that you're having a reaction, something has started, like a client of mine I spoke to yesterday. He said, I just want to vent about this other person and how I got treated by that person. So I let him do that, and then because I knew that he couldn't see his own contribution to the problem until he was able to do that. He was going to be triggered.
Yep.
And so once he did that, then I eased into saying, now, aren't these things that person, said that upset you? Aren't they things that you've said about yourself and asked me to coach you on?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh,
Yes.
oh. And so,
Yeah.
we spent the rest of the half hour working on him, of course, not on this other person.
Yes. Where there's no power. I don't have it memorized, but one of the things I heard years ago that I just love so much is that what's easier, to carpet the world or get yourself a nice, comfortable pair of sandals?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
What else do we want to say about this? There's been something that's been wanting to be said here. Oh, it's this. I began to recognize that I've got an internal guidance system. Probably 15 years ago, I started noticing that. After I'd been doing this depth of work for about 8 or 9 years. And then I got real curious about, well, how does it work? Because it sure seems to be, it's not return to the route, but it kind of is. It's not take a left at the next light, but it's pretty close. There's something inside that I can actually feel. And sometimes it seems like an even hear that says, nope, not this.
Yeah.
Not this. Often that's the routing system. That's the way the routing system is announced, like return to the route, not this, not this. And other times it is, wow, look how much we love this. Look at how great this is. An example, this is a simple example that I walked outside this morning. Can't remember why I walked outside. I'm usually stuck in my office on Tuesday through Thursday doing sessions, but I'll take a break and I'll walk outside, and it's a beautiful day outside. And I looked around, and looked at all the work that my wife has been doing in the garden. She loves gardening. She loves plants. And I don't love gardening. I don't hate plants. I love the plants, but I just don't really enjoy the gardening. She does. So, and she doesn't do it for me. You do too, I know. she doesn't do it for me. She does it for herself. Yet I walked outside and I just saw the beauty of what she had done. And it was gorgeous. And I just took it in for a bit. That my internal guidance system is saying yes, 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 yes. And I'm wondering, okay, what's this saying to me that I need to do more plants or something? And it's almost like my guidance system said, no, go tell her how much you appreciate what she's done. Go tell her about the beauty that you see that she's made manifest in your lawn at your home.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
did. I did.
That's great. Yeah. So you're pointing to two things: what it feels like to not be clear, and what it feels like to be clear. This is what I want, and I think that's really important. It's gonna feel right. It's gonna go ka-ching, as they say.
Yeah.
It's gonna just ah
Yep.
yeah, that's it. It's gonna
Mhm.
feel like that.
That's right. That's right. And we don't have to wait for all of that to happen. Is another point I think that we want to have a takeaway from this conversation, is that we can get clear about before it actually manifests. We can get clear about what the internal guidance system will help us to get clear about what it is that we want, or at least get into that ballpark. And often what it takes is not that, not that, not that. I don't want to be disrespected. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be taken advantage. All those things that I put on that list, I didn't want that all those not that's that was coming from my internal guidance system, which is a combination, I believe, of my past, my unresolved, and as well as resolved past, as well as my self-led parts of me that are enhanced and imbued by my true authentic self.
And I just want to say also, I there sometimes it helps a lot to have a professional coach help you complete with all those entanglements so that you can get clarity. That's one of the ways that you notice that you're not being run by those old conversations, is that what shows up is, oh yeah, there's something else that I could go for. I don't have to keep fighting this battle. And but sometimes it helps to have another person in there to guide that conversation.
Absolutely, it's like it would be like hiring Bob Barker to go ahead and show you what's behind door number 1, 2, or 3 before you have to choose.
Hmm. Well said.
I don't know why I thought of just now. Door number 1, 2, or 3. Oh, geez. Gosh, one could be like a rotten tomato. One could be a brand new car. A brand new car. Or yeah. Well, let's open up the doors and see. Oh, there's a car. There's a rotten tomato, and then there's a scooter.
Now I'm
Oh,
clear. I
then,
definitely want that scooter.
or nor did I want the rotten tomato. Yeah. I want the car. So we can wait and hope that we recognize it when we see it. I'll know it when I see it. Or we can
I
be
will.
in advance by using what we know we don't want, looking at the opposite, finding somewhere around that lands, and we can feel it then. All we have to do is even imagine what we want, and we will feel it.
Ah, yes. Oh, yes. That's it.
And that's what Esther Hicks was trying to teach Chris and I years ago that we missed. She kept saying, it's in the feeling. It's in the feeling. And that's what we were missing. What does she mean it's in the feeling? It's once you get clear about what you want, you can feel it inside.
Yeah.
And your internal guidance system is saying, yes, that's it. Now go get it.
And that's another really important point, that we've been a culture to, I think, to discredit those feelings. Like, it's more about what's convenient, what's effective, what's going to get me money, what's going to get me approval, all of those things.
Security, safety.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to bring security. I heard just this morning from a client, I'm too big. I have this voice in my head that says I'm getting too big for my britches when I celebrate my successes. It's wants me to tone it down. And that'll kill the ambition of pursuing what you want very quickly.
Yep.
Till next time.
We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.